In this video, let's talk about price controls, what they are, how they work, and what are the effects of price control. Price controls are government-mandated legal minimum and maximum prices set for specific goods. There are two different controls on price. There's a price ceiling, a legal maximum on the price at which a good can be sold, which basically means sellers can't charge a price above a certain level, and a price floor, a legal minimum on the price at which a good can be sold. The good cannot be sold at a price below this level. Now let's look at price ceiling with an example of rent control. Let's assume the market for rental properties is in equilibrium with the equilibrium price 1200 euros and the quantity supplied and demanded is 400,000 properties. The government imposes a price ceiling at 800 euros. This is a binding price ceiling. An important thing to note here is that if the price ceiling would be, let's say here, this would have no effect, because it's above the equilibrium and the economic activity would just force the prices to equilibrium, and it has to be below the equilibrium. And at this lower price, there's movement along the demand and supply curve. Supply goes down, demand goes up. So the new quantity supplied is 200,000 properties, and the new quantity demanded is 600,000 properties. This causes an excess demand, which is shortage. There's also a loss in total surplus. We can see the producer surplus, the consumer surplus, and this gray area, which is the loss in total surplus, also known as the deadweight loss. This is due to market inefficiency because we are not letting market reach the equilibrium. We are not producing at optimum quantity. So what are the effects of a price ceiling? There's a shortage of 400,000 properties because quantity demanded is greater than quantity supplied. There's less incentive for landowners to supply houses, so it may result in black markets, loss of quantities of property supplied, and they may even exit the market, which is not good for consumers. And we looked at deadweight loss in the last slide. Now let's look at minimum price floor with an example of minimum wage. Let's assume the minimum wage is in equilibrium with the minimum wage at 950 euros per hour, and the quantity of workers supplied is 150,000. The government comes in and says, this is too low, I'm raising the minimum wage to 1010, and then it imposes a new price floor at 1010. And again, it's only binding if it's above the equilibrium, and if it was here, this is not binding because economic activity would force the prices to equilibrium. The new quantity demanded is 75,000 workers, and the new quantity supplied is 200,000 workers because of the movement along the demand and supply curve because of the price floor. This causes an excess supply, which is unemployment. Again, there's a loss in total surplus, the producer surplus, the consumer surplus, and this gray area, the deadweight loss due to market inefficiency. So what are the effects of price floor? At this higher price, employers are less likely to hire workers, and it causes unemployment of 125,000 workers, which is wasteful, and these resources could be used more efficiently. And it only benefits the ones who are able to find employment, and others lose out. And we looked at deadweight loss due to market inefficiency in the last slide. So what the conclusion on price ceiling? On the surface, price ceilings may seem really great. In the case of rent control, it would mean lower rents for consumers, and in the case of minimum wage, it would mean higher wages for workers. But when you look deeper into them, they yield negative effects. They are set with good intentions, but they often end up those who are trying to help. They're trying to help. They sound good, but they don't work. You may remember one of the principles of economics is that markets are a good way to organize economic activity. Therefore, economists oppose price control, and competitive markets should thus be left alone, because if the government came in and manipulated the prices, it would cause some sort of shortage or surplus, which is not ideal. So does this mean that we cannot help out the poor? No, subsidies would be a better way to help out the people. It would mean they could better afford the rent. It would mean higher wages in the case of rent and wage subsidies, and would not affect the quantity supplied. And this is the references page. And thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.